Hi, my name's Cory Mayo, licensed realtor with Monument Sotheby's, and welcome to Who's in the House, your podcast for everything coastal Delaware. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. That way you're updated every time I upload new podcasts or videos. And if at any time you have questions, feel free to email us at info@who'sinthehouse.de as in Delaware.com. You can also call or text 302-466-5511. Now sit back and enjoy this episode of Who's in the House. But yeah, this has been super informative. We've obviously been talking here for a while already about your business venture here in coastal Delaware with your candles, and they're not just candles; they're like super candles. They're like the health food of candles, which I think is super important for people that are watching to understand. Which and to be honest, as of whatever it was an hour ago that you showed up, I had no idea. I thought a candle is a candle.
Sure.
And some companies, like the big box companies, they have ones that when you smell them and you're like, oh, you're in the mall and you walk to that store and you just, all the scents draw you in, and it's like a little bit of sensory overload, but they have really, really strong scents. And I just thought it's wax and scents, and
Sure.
and that's pretty much it. I'm sure that probably the vast majority of people think the same thing. And just in this short time, I'm already like, oh my goodness, I need to go evacuate my house of every candle possible, because of I never knew that there was actual. I don't want to be an alarmist. Danger,
Right.
When it comes to burning a candle. But about you first, a little bit. I would love for people to know a little bit about kind of your history, like kind of where you're from. Obviously, you've got you're like a rocket scientist, like you build spaceships and stuff as far as your educational background. But, so this is not just kind of an off the shelf hobby that you started.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in Ohio. I've kind of lived all over the country, and, my background's engineering. So I've done a lot of, different types of work, but I've worked in, petroleum refineries. I worked in soybean refineries, which kind of plays into a lot of this, what we're talking about today, and worked in a lot of life sciences industries as well.
Okay.
And so, I've got, a lot of curiosity about what's in the stuff that we eat and drink and breathe, specifically with these candles and things. So that's kind of what's driven me. But I kind of lived in a lot of different places around the country, and then moved here about 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
And to Lewes, just love it. I mean, as soon as we came here, it was like an immediate.
I'm at home.
Yeah. It's just it's got that great feel. I never in a million years thought I'd actually live at the beach.
Yeah.
Which is pretty awesome.
I know the feeling. Yeah. 100%.
You don't ever really you take that for granted when you go on vacations, and then you move to a place like this and you go, this is pretty insane.
Yeah.
We live here, right?
It's so funny you say that. We have a whole group of us in our community, and every Sunday we drive on the beach, and literally without doubt, every weekend someone goes, "Can you believe this is where we live?"
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah, it's funny, because I think growing up, everyone's dream is always like, oh, maybe someday I can live at the beach, or it's just a dream. Like, I wish I lived at the beach, or I wish I was in California or whatever. And it's typically most shore points are extremely expensive, and not that it's cheap here by any stretch of the imagination, but compared to a lot of other shore points, and it's like, wow, now we're here. And this is pretty cool, And I think of my daughters. I'm like, they're going to be in high school, and after school, the vision I had of getting in the car and driving to the beach with their friends and hanging out at the beach after school. I'm like, how crazy is that? It's crazy.
You don't ever, you just take it for granted completely. And living in North Carolina, we didn't live near the beach, but we went to the beach a lot.
Sure.
And going to the Outer Banks, right? I mean, people love the Outer Banks, and so we'd go there, and it's like, I could never afford to live here. It's crazy expensive. Yeah. And then I'd never even stepped foot in the state of Delaware until we moved here. Yeah. And so, we hit Rehoboth and Lewes and Bethany and things. It was like, oh, I can't believe these beaches.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
A small town feel, and it's it's so community friendly here, and which is cool also. And I don't know, and I never asked you. I don't know if you were doing this before you came here.
Oh, no.
Or no. Okay, so this area I think is is very open and ready for a product like this. I think the like-minded people being so, I think a lot of people, when you're close to the water, you become more mindful of kind of, I don't want to sound corny, but Mother Nature around you. I mean, we sit on the beach and we look at this big, beautiful ocean, and it's obviously much bigger than even what our eyes can see. And it's just really neat to know that there's all of this stuff that's going on, and we go home and we look at products around our home, whether it be cleaning supplies, whatever it might be, and then candles is never one that would ever come up on my radar of, should I be cleaning my stove with vinegar and water, or this like heavy chemical cleaning supply that smells awful that I need to put a mask on for? Never on my radar is, should I burn this candle versus this candle? Is there a difference? Never, ever in a million years thought of that. As of, an hour ago when we started talking. And so, like I said, I was going to be going home and like cleaning house.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this, less than a year, and it took some time when I took the first step and said, this is something I'm interested in.
Sure.
So I did a lot of research, and I started that about 1.5 years ago. And I did it, up until a point where I felt, okay, I'm ready. And I made some product, made a lot of prototypes, and had fun with it. But that was up until, I formed the company almost exactly 1 year ago. It was 1 year ago this week.
Wow, good for you.
And so I just formed it last year, but I did my research, and during that process is when I, just like you, learned a whole lot about something that I just took for granted.
Sure.
And I did not really think there was any reason to be that concerned and whatnot. So there's a lot of companies out there that make candles. There's loads of companies.
I can only imagine the quantity.
Yeah. You can go to so many stores and they've got many different selections to choose from. And soy is by far the minority of what most candles are made of, right?
Probably because of cost.
And I would say only really within, let's just say the last decade and a half or so, that people I would say, have become a little more conscientious of some of the things that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And so some of the concern I think that people had was, well, what's in this stuff? And because it is one of those, it's a weird thing. And I always thought the same thing, right? And I think I've thought the same thing of a lot of stuff. I'm an engineer. It's kind of what drives me, right? I'm always interested in what's in anything.
Sure.
What how it's made. And so I love shows like that where they show how all these different things are made, and candles is one of those that I just thought it's got to be pretty straightforward. And it is. It's pretty straightforward. But most paraffin candles, most candles are made of paraffin. About 90 to 95% of the candles in the market today are made of paraffin. And that's...
And paraffin is, correct me if I'm wrong, please, is a refined or a byproduct of crude oil.
Of petroleum.
Of petroleum,
Yep.
Okay.
And so you've got something that is in, a jar or in a pillar fashion, and it's a byproduct of petroleum, which doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. There's a lot of things that are byproducts of petroleum. The difference, though,
we just don't burn a lot of it.
It's being burned in your home, right?
Yeah.
So you're taking something and you're like, well, this is a byproduct of petroleum, no big deal, but you're burning it in your home, and most people, you don't think much of it. And why? Because it smells good,
Yeah.
right? So, well, it smells good. It can't be bad for me. Just like the food you eat, a lot of the food you eat smells really good.
Sure.
And it tastes really good, but it might not be really good for you. But this kind of takes it to a different level, because if this was something that, was, let's just say, canned or bagged and put in something that you ate, a paraffin candle would not be something you would ever be allowed to eat. But yet we're breathing it, right, when it's being lit and smells really good. So after I started doing that research, and I just decided that's not something I even want to toy with. I'm a cancer survivor. I don't really take those things lightly when it comes to my health.
Sure.
And so, yeah, looking into some of what drives what's in a candle, if it's paraffin, that means it's got a lot of stuff that's not good for you in it, and a lot of those things are carcinogenic, right? And a carcinogen causes cancer. And if it's something that has even a very minute risk of being inhaled by me, I don't want to go through that all over again.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine anybody who would. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to make something, I don't want to even think about or find out that somebody that bought a product from me had something happen like what happened to me, and you get that shock from your doctor, and you hear the C word, and you think, well,
sure,
how did this happen? Well, it's hard to say, right? It happens from a lot of different things, and I certainly don't want something I'm making to be the cause of that for somebody else.
Even like, if they're going through all the possibilities, like not one check mark, like, which is, seems to be, ironically, very simple to avoid.
Yeah.
It's really not that hard of a process to provide a product that doesn't. It just, I think that number one, you have to have the willingness to want to make the difference. A, and B, kind of the desire to be the part of the change. And I'm not speaking brands or names, but there are some really big candle companies that are out there. And when you're that big, and as far as, I don't want to say supporting them, but giving them the out, when you're that big, it's, you're in the business to make money, period. Sure. You can't really be in it because of the passion. When you are in malls and shops and stores all across the country, like, you can only be that big because you're in it to make money. Like anything. I mean, even people that sell green beans in grocery stores, like, their job is to make money, period. That big company. So I think it takes the smaller brands to bring awareness or change to the industry. And then it's kind of a trickle-up effect. Yeah. And then maybe they'll start to launch a product. But to a point that we were talking about earlier, they may launch a soy product, but it's not like a real soy or a true soy product. You had said, you gave me this spreadsheet, if it doesn't, there's a difference between a soy candle and a 100% soy candle.
Yeah. I mean, so that sheet, which, when I put that on my Facebook group for my group members, the point there is to say, you've got something that is a paraffin candle, and there's, obviously a lot of different things that are in that many people are not even going to be comfortable saying the names.
I was going to say, I don't even know how to pronounce if not all of them, 90% of these.
And so, sort of seeing that, you go, okay, well, that those aren't good things, right? Because many of those things are carcinogenic.
Sure.
And that's proven.
And carcinogenic is a word that, especially when we're talking about burning, and I'm not attributing it to that, but, when we talk about smoking cigarettes, that is a term that is tossed around. You're burning something, it's going into your lungs.
And it took years.
It's not a good thing.
It took years before the tobacco industry said, yeah, okay, we'll agree that there is a chance that people are getting cancer from our product. That took a long time for the public to both agree and acknowledge. And I think, similar things are probably happening with candle industry, right?
Sure.
It's going to take time for people to be educated on this. But yeah, the point that you mentioned about if it's a soy blended candle or a soy based candle, which I kind of put in that middle column, the only difference between that first column and the middle column is that the word soy is in it. And that's
literally, it's just one. It's one cell that's shifted down. Here's a blank cell here, and that's
it. And the point there is to say, you still have all of those things that are in paraffin in a soy blended or soy based candle, because the vast majority, and this is probably overstepping a bit, but the vast majority of any candle out there that's soy blended or soy based is saying that because paraffin is a very stable and easy to work with thing, right? So paraffin is real easy. It's very cheap. It's easy to manufacture, or easier to manufacture. So that's why most people use it. And so if you sprinkle in a little bit of soy, now you can call your product a soy blended. I was going to say,
is there like an industry standard of if you want to call it a soy blend or a soy based, that it needs to be X percentage of soy in order to, or can they just literally just
you could make it just about any ratio that you'd like, right? I mean, there's the reason why it would be easier to put a very small percentage of soy in it is because aesthetically, paraffin just usually looks more uniform, and it's easier to work with. And as I said, it's cheaper, so it's easier to make profit, right? It's easier to make money.
So if you're looking for something, like for people that maybe they watch this episode of the podcast and they go, oh yeah, I need to get rid of this, and I whatever, and they go to a big box store where they're getting cereal and cleaning supplies and clothes and all, and they go over to the candle aisle and they're looking at the candle aisle and they're like, soy, good, I'm safe now. I can bring this home and my family's safe, my pets are safe. What they need to be looking for is it needs to say 100% soy. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. If it says soy blended or soy based, there is a very, very high probability that it still has paraffin in it. If somebody made a soy blended candle that was, let's say, soy and coconut wax or soy and beeswax, that's a different story. But it would also call that out, right? Those individuals would be calling that out for sure.
Sure, because they want to boast that.
Absolutely,
that
because
fact.
beeswax is a great natural product to use. I would say it's just as good to use as soy. It's a little more difficult to deal with, and it melts differently, which sometimes can be challenging. And coconut wax, which I've also used in the past, is also good, but it's also a little bit trickier to utilize in terms of when you make the candle. Soy is natural, and so mine are I only use soy. That's the only ingredient other than the fragrance in the candle. So
could you theoretically, before you put the the scented oil in this, could you eat that? It's soy.
Could you eat it? Yeah, you absolutely could eat it, right?
You wouldn't. The
thing is that if you ate it, which I definitely do not recommend. I'm strongly opposing anyone eating
your
soy candle. But if you were, the difference though is that it would definitely clog your digestive tract for sure, because it's wax. It's not something that's intended to be eaten.
Okay.
Which is why I put things like do not consume right on my.
Don't put this on your pan right before you're cooking.
So some of them that I make, kind of look like fruits and things that would be edible, or gummy bears that kind of look like they're edible. I always say do not for consumption, do not eat. And so that is really intended to just say, look, could you? Sure. Is it going to go through your body okay? Yes. Is it going to be absorbed in your body? Yes. The difference is if you ate paraffin, your body would be absorbing everything that's in those columns.
And that's kind of what I was saying. Like, this is 100% natural soy versus Thai or whatever. I'm not going to try. I'm going to
try chlorofluoromethane.
Yes, that's probably not something I would want to put into my body and have absorbed.
Right.
So no, I think that's good. And the other thing that you mentioned earlier, which I think was a huge thing, and when you kind of think about the process and what it's doing, you had a client who made the change because he had to paint the ceiling in his house because of the soot coming off from burning paraffin stained his ceiling. It makes me think of, and I know it may not be to this level, but a home with a smoker, a lot of plastics in the home will turn yellow. They'll get yellowed from the tar and the carcinogens that are in cigarettes. And he had to paint his ceiling. And number one, it probably had to seal it, because you can't just get all that soot and stuff off the ceiling. And if you have to seal a paint, it means that there's something so strong or something so, I don't want to say toxic. That's not, and maybe it is, I don't know. But you have to put a sealer on it first and then paint your color on top of it. That's what you are potentially breathing in that's in the air if it's ending up on your ceiling.
Yeah, I had a lot of communication with this guy, and he was great. I made 4 custom candles for him. Yeah, and the main reason he reached out was because he read the article about the Cape Gazette did an article on us back in October, which was great, and we got a lot of good feedback from that. And this individual bought some candles, and one of the reasons he bought them is because he did some research and saw that soy candles usually have less soot produced when you burn them. And he said, "Yeah, I've got black marks all over my ceiling," because he apparently puts the candle in the same spot when he burns it, and he would burn them for extended periods of time. And paraffin candles produce a lot more soot, right? Because there are so many let's just say contaminants. They're not contaminants. It's what's in the material, but
Sure.
it's things that are going to burn.
The byproduct of the burning process. Yeah.
And so it's going to burn much more readily in a fashion that produces dark soot, black soot. So when you see that dark smoke from a candle, it usually means that either that wick is clogged or it's a paraffin candle that's just kind of doing its thing naturally.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of soy candles is unless that candle's been burning way too long and the wick is starting to split, and they call it mushroom. If it's doing that, then it might produce some black smoke, because I can't say that soy candles don't do that, but
Sure.
they don't do it readily. So he had to repaint his ceilings. His wife was not happy with him. And then he said, well, I'm just going to buy candles from you from now on, which was great, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a simple fix for a problem that if people don't like that smoke, or to your point, it starts discoloring things in your home, whether it's your walls, your cupboards, your ceiling, your curtains. Yeah, I mean, why would you want to keep doing that?
But
right?
if it is, and I think that sometimes people, when they think of cigarette smokes, someone inhales, they exhale, and they see the smoke come out, and they just stay away from it. I'm now safe. I don't see things coming off of the candle, so I'm probably okay. But I think that, and I could be totally wrong with this assumption, but obviously if you're smelling the scent of a candle, that's not the natural unscented air. So yes, you may not be seeing black soot in the air that is going into your lungs, but if you're burning a candle and you're smelling it, that stuff is going into your lungs.
Yeah, I guess one analogy I would make there is, you watch a crime show on TV, right? And they go into the crime scene and they turn on the black light so they can see, where the blood spatters are or something, and you get a visual, right? You can see where something's happened. Well, I would say the analogy there is if you can smell it, that means that what you just burned made it into the space where you're standing or sitting and you're breathing, right? So that's sort of the black light is when you're breathing in that smell, if it's a scented candle. Now, if it's an unscented candle, you have no idea.
No, yeah.
And
that's like the tracer that goes along with it.
Absolutely.
That's the tell.
Yep. That's your
so
black light tracer. So
if you can smell it, you're breathing it.
Absolutely, hands down. And so, not to mention, when air gets circulated in a home or anything else, right? Your filters in your home, are not going to filter out those things. Yep. They may filter out a couple of them, depending on the size of the molecule. And I don't want to get into my engineering talk here, but if you've got a filter that's really highly rated, then maybe it could filter out some of those things. But most people's homes don't have filters that are ever going to filter those things out. So it's continually recirculating in your home.
Sure.
And the air that your children are breathing and your pets are breathing and you're breathing are all impacted for sure.
But and here's the thing, and I think that probably by nature, people that are watching this are like, no, that's all great, but that's probably comes at a cost. That's why. And so like we have this candle here, this big boy, and if we were to compare this to one of the big brands, you said it's probably priced similarly. This is like a $38 candle, but it smells awesome. This is Lewes Vibes, which is, that's also the cool part.
Yeah.
These aren't just like, brands or scents that are all around, available everywhere in the country, but these burn about twice as long.
Yeah.
So in theory, it's actually compared to like the big brands, it's like half the cost, almost because of its burn quality and time.
Sure. I mean, there's really two things that affect how long a candle burns. One is the wick. So if you've got a nice wick, like that candle normally at a lot of places might have 2 or 3 wicks in it. My wick that's there is a really nice higher temp burning wick. So I don't need multiple wicks in there. If you have multiple wicks, usually it burns a candle faster, right?
So why do they do that? Are they just trying to burn through their product faster so it's a better not investment, but they're selling more product?
I didn't say that.
Oh,
but
okay.
But that would be in a lot of cases. If you have multiple wicks, you're going to go through that potentially faster than if you just had one of that same type of wick. But the other thing is some wicks aren't going to burn hot enough, right? So if it doesn't burn hot enough, it won't burn all of the wax, and then you have all this wax on the sides of your candle. And
sure. And it's just wasted
It's
money.
a wasted product, right? So they want to get the most out of the product for their customers, and hopefully that's what drives it. But the other thing is when we mentioned the speed at which it burns, like paraffin burns faster. By nature, it burns faster than soy. Soy is a slower burning wax. And if you're talking about other waxes, beeswax actually burns even slower than soy does, right? So they both burn much slower because they're naturally occurring products. And so the flash point of like all those chemicals that are on there is at a point where you can burn it faster, which means your candle's going to go much faster, and you'll have to replenish it and buy another one.
Sure.
Right? So what you mentioned earlier, if the cost is the same, but your paraffin candle burns twice as fast, and you're replacing it, let's say next week, as opposed to waiting 2 weeks or a month or whatever to replace a soy candle, then is it really saving you money going to the store and buying a $7 candle? You know, yeah, I guess it's saving you the additional cost that you saved today, right?
Yeah.
But if you plan on burning more than one candle a year, then it's probably not saving you any money annually. It's costing you money because those candles are going to burn a lot faster, and obviously they're a little more, let's just say, higher risk of harming you than a soy candle would.
Well, and I think there's also this part too, and this is where I said I think that your brain kind of blends in well with this area. I mean, I think a lot of people where they live, you know, they kind of like that's where they hang their hat, you know, and that, you know, that's where it's home, and you know, a lot of people that live here, we love living in coastal Delaware and blah 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 blah. You know, I told you my daughter's big into Irish dancing, and we were overseas, and we went to her designer who's in England, and we took him some things from here, you know, that were special to Delaware because he lives kind of in the coastal area over there. Because we wanted to bring a little bit of coastal Delaware, you know, and he has it displayed and he loved it. But people especially during like holidays or for, you know, baby showers or bridal showers, whatever, candles are kind of one of those products that they talk about. And it's like, I can go to the big box store, you know, again, do my grocery shopping and go to the candle aisle and grab something for a gift that is the same thing that they could walk in to their big box store on the West Coast and buy the exact same product, or have something that's Lewes vibes is the scent, which is like so specific. And besides the fact that it's handmade in your house here in Lewes, Delaware, like it just adds to the story of this isn't just a candle. It's like, oh, what do I get them? I get them you know, I get a gift bag and a candle and some tissue paper and throw it in there and I'm done. And it's again the same thing they can get anywhere. This is something that's specific. It tells the story. It has, you know, outside of the name Lewes Vibes, you know, handcrafted in Lewes, Delaware. You know, that would be something. Had we met, you know, a month ago, I probably would have taken one to Birmingham, England, to give to my daughter's dressmaker, and it would have been really cool and had the smell. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what Lewes, you know, smells like, but but it's like cool, you know. It's like it's a neat thing to also offer as gifts. Yeah,
I think for me,
and we're not putting carcinogens in our friends and families' homes.
That's right. I think it's important that, you know, what I'm making, if it's being sold or given as gifts to anyone, whether it's somebody I know or not, I want to make sure that it's not something that's going to harm them. I also want them to have something that I think is kind of fun. I've got hundreds of different scents, right? So I can make just about anything you can think of. If you like certain scents, I can try and replicate things pretty frequently. The challenge is that anybody can say that, right? Anybody can go buy the same products that I'm buying and turning into a candle. So the challenge there is, how do you make something that's a little different than the next person's? And candles aren't a new thing. It's not something they were just invented last year.
That's true.
So, you know, when I got into this, I thought, oh, what am I doing, right? Like, this is something that people have been doing forever. And during COVID, I think that, I mean, it's been reported, at least in the research that I've done, that there were more candle companies formed during the 1.5 to 2 year period.
Because people stuck at home.
Because people were stuck at home, and it was something that they could do and still, you know, feel like they were trying to, you know, bide their time, do something that was healthy and fun, and they did it as hobbies. Many people obviously made money. And so how do you differentiate, right? Like, this is something that people all over the place are doing. Well, I think to your point about doing something like creating a scent called Lewes Vibes, I name these things. Sometimes I have a little creative bug that hits me, and I'm like, well, I'm going to make this one will be called, you know, Lewes Vibes. I've got one, I think they're called Delaware Coast. Now, does it smell like the Delaware coast? I guess it would depend on where you're hanging out on the Delaware coast, right? And I guess Lewes vibes, does it have a scent? Not necessarily, but I think that there are things when you go to a city, and if you're a tourist, if you're visiting and you want a gift, or if you just want something that, obviously, hopefully it smells good to you, you pick it up and you take a look at it. But for me, the differentiator that I wanted to try and just have fun with was what's on top of the lids and just putting so I looked into putting a match strike on a container, and I thought, well, that's something that most people don't even use anymore. Matches.
Yeah.
How many people do you know that use matches, right?
Yeah.
Not many. And I know I certainly don't use matches very often, and even finding a matchbox isn't like it used to be, right? You could go to a bar, any bar, and you'd see a box, or a book of matches. So I thought, well, that would be unique because nobody's really using matches these days. And then, well, what could I put on there that's reminiscent of what I want people to think of? Well, the name itself, Enlightened Coast, was something that I kind of had fun with. It was like, it was an epiphany to me when I thought of doing this business. So I was a bit enlightened. Obviously, you light a candle. It's kind of a little fun tongue-in-cheek joke with the name. We're on the coast, and Delaware, that's kind of what I want people to think of when they see these candles. So we've got the Delaware match strike on top, and now that we branched out a bit and I'm selling in other places,
but it's
other
cool
things on top.
I feel like, and there's and I didn't even know that you said there's wick trimmers and all types of stuff, and I think that it gets into a little bit for people that get into burning candles versus it's the holidays. I want my house to smell like evergreen, so I burn a evergreen candle, and there you go. It makes my fake tree smell like a real tree. Yeah. This is kind of like the people that drink brandy or like smoke cigars. It can go from grabbing a lighter to have a scent because my family and friends are coming over and I want my house to smell like Lewes vibes, or it's an experience. And I know that sounds weird, and I had no idea again until like an hour ago of this this candle lifestyle. But it can be, and it's like, I'm gonna grab a book, I'm gonna light my match, and so what do? So you grab your candle, you get your wick trimmer, you trim it to the proper length, and so this is gonna, hopefully I don't have any smoke, before we set off.
Yeah, don't have any sprinklers going.
But that is, it just adds a completely different experience to what you would find with any other product. Yeah, and it's simple, and just so people can see, it's like the shape of Delaware, and it's a striker on top. I just think, let's see, there's a crab here. It's different, and so not only is it healthier, but it's fun. Yeah. It brings from it just being a scent. And which again, as we're talking, I'm starting to think about stuff more. Candles originally, their whole purpose was light because we didn't have electricity. It wasn't for the scent and everything, and they've maintained their position in our lifestyles, and now through scents and everything. But back then they weren't using paraffin because we weren't refining petroleum back in the olden days. But it's neat, and I think that the irony of when I look at some things that you have here, like for example, this is would be like a gift for a baby shower.
Yep.
That it potentially contains carcinogens. It's the irony of it is crazy to think that that's like what would be something that would be used.
Yeah.
As cool.
So the wax melts. I mean, to your point about candles were originally made for light, right? Obviously, wax melts it's a somewhat new or newer thing that's been out there, and clearly the only thing you're using those for is because you want something to smell good, right? You just want them for the scent. There's no ambiance that's created from a wax melt.
The wax is the vehicle to transfer the scent.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so you get your wax melter. They come in various forms. You drop these in, and you're good to go. And when I started doing those, I was getting requested by people. They're like, I don't really like burning candles. Some people just don't like having flames around. Being the son of a firefighter, I get it. We used to get lectured all the time with open flames.
Sure.
And so having a wax melt was kind of a fun idea. And so I made the ones that come in the little containers. I call those the clamshell containers they come in. Those are Those are really easy because if you turn it around, it looks like a candy bar, right? So you just break them off, right? You just break those pieces and you put those in your wax melter, so you're not just putting the whole thing in at once. But these are more, decorative, so they're kind of fun, right? They're like fruit shaped, and the ones you picked up, obviously, they're like baby themed with a little foot and a onesie and a teddy bear. And yeah, so those I just made some for a woman who's having a gender reveal party.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
So she wanted some of those, and so they could be colored pink or blue, right? Depending on what they're going to reveal as the gender of the baby. And so that was kind of a fun idea. And I thought, oh, that's a new idea. And those will definitely be advertised on the website soon.
But the first thing that when you were telling me about this that I'm thinking is, oh, cool. No offense, but I don't need your product because it's not being burned.
Right.
I don't have to worry about that. It's just being melted. So that there's no harm, no foul if I use paraffin. But then there is.
Yeah, there is.
I didn't know that, which is, again, if you can smell it, it's not the actual burning process. It's again, the flame is kind of the vehicle that gets that stuff into the air, and that's just the heat. If you can smell it, if you can smell the scent, that stuff is being transferred.
Yeah, I mean, if you just sort of think of anything, not to again get too technical and sciencey here, but anything that melts, if there's a lot of stuff in it, there might be some things in there that, they're melting into solution, but they're also potentially evaporating into gas form. So with all the things that are in a candle, there are certainly things that are absolutely being transferred from solid into gaseous form, and you're breathing them in. So whether it's being melted or being burned by a flame, it doesn't matter.
Well, when water goes away, when it evaporates, it's not because of fire.
Right.
So that's,
So you have to, and you just have to kind of consider the things that I loved your comment, right? Like when you think about things that are given as gifts, I just think, man, if I'm giving this as a gift or if I'm making this as a product for somebody, I don't want to be the reason why, it's causing harm to someone else. So I've been pretty conscientious of those things, and nothing against the people who are out there who are making paraffin candles. Hey, continue to do your thing.
They may not even know, to be honest.
But that's part of the thing, right? Yeah. I think to me, this is a learning exercise, and I don't want to burst people's bubble. I just want people to know what they're doing, right? I mean, if somebody was eating something, if I saw somebody, if I saw a child pick a sucker off of the ground that somebody else had been chewing on and they pick it up and put it in their mouth, I would probably stop them.
Yeah,
right?
How about we don't do that?
Yeah, right? Like you say,
that's a good idea.
This is not something that I think is good, so you want to bring attention, say, hey, don't do that, right?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to kind of do the same thing with this. It's like you can choose to do whatever you'd like, right? I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't burn something else. If you enjoy it and you like it, have at it, right? But to me, this is almost like the seatbelt to me. If I'm driving in a car and I'm driving with somebody and they're not driving with the seatbelt on in my car while I'm driving, I'm probably going to say something. This is, to me, the same scenario. It's the seatbelt for me. It's like, hey, just want you to know what I'm doing here is probably better for you than not wearing the seatbelt.
Yeah.
Right? So just be conscientious of what you're burning, eating, drinking, all that sort of thing.
Well, I think the other thing that's cool, and obviously you have tons and tons of scents that are here, which is really cool. But the other thing that you do is, number one, you recycle containers. So if people have, other candle jars that they have, and they can bring them to you and either have them, they could give them to you, or they could have them refilled, which is nice, and refilled with something that was probably healthier than what was originally in there. But, my mind goes to things. So, for example, you have this one that's scented whiskey, which is really cool. And the thing that I think of for me personally, is if you had, let's just say, a loved one that is no longer with you, and maybe you had a whiskey glass of theirs that was like something that they always used. You could bring that glass to you that has sentimental value, and you fill it with a whiskey scented candle that you could burn in your study or in your office, and it's kind of like just takes you back for a minute of like remembering that person. You have the opportunity that you'll take someone's specific item, whether it's as simple as an old candle jar or something that has sentimental value, and filling it with a scent that makes sense to that jar. You don't get that when you go to the candle aisle.
Sure,
you pick what's there and whatever it is. That's pretty neat. That's pretty cool that you've taken it, not one step farther, but like 10 steps farther of you being personal like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's the personal touch, which is a lot of fun. But trying to do something that's having an environmental impact. Glass, we recycle glass and have recycled glass for decades, and as a community, but a lot of people, when they get done with a candle, don't realize when they finish burning a candle and they throw it in the recycling bin, like a lot of other things you put in the recycling bin, it doesn't end up going into the proper place, right? Those go in a landfill, and that's because recycling centers can't process wax, and because they can't process wax, the recycling centers just put it into the giant bin that takes everything to a landfill. So no matter what you're doing as an individual, if you're burning a candle and it's got wax in the bottom, and it will unless you personally clean it out, because there's always wax left in the bottom. Not all the wax ever.
So the sorters will just go
the sorters
trash.
Will absolutely put that in the bin where it takes everything to landfill. And so when I thought about that, again, when I did that research, I went, oh my gosh. So everybody thinks they're doing the right thing by putting their container in a recycling bin, right? You think you're doing your part.
Yep.
And you're trying to do the right thing, but it's still not going to where it needs to go. So I said, okay, well, I need to try and maybe do something here. So let's try and make people aware of this that I just mentioned. And then if you have glass that you are holding on to, I'll clean it, I'll sanitize it, and I will then repurpose it. And so when that article came out in the Cape Gazette back in the fall, and people saw some of that, oh my gosh, I had people bringing me cases and cases of glass. I had a woman who brought me glass, and she said she had been holding on to it for like 10 years. And I said, what? You've been holding on to this glass for 10? Why? I've been waiting for somebody like you to come along. And I said, that's crazy, but good for you, right?
Yeah.
Because rather than just sort of discarding it, I think she was concerned that they wouldn't recycle some of the glass.
Sure.
And again, many of them were used containers for candles. So I said, okay, well, this is going to be a thing then. So let's try to get people to realize what to do, and they can come to me. I always tell people, if you live in a community anywhere in the country, find somebody that's doing something hopefully like me, because they're out there. There are plenty of people out there that are doing this. I am not the first, but find them, seek them out, and see if they'll try and help, serve this purpose. And so then I said, well, if I can use that glass yogurt jar that once had yogurt in it, and you can go to your local grocery and see if they have those. But there are like 3 different brands that I'm aware of that have glass and or ceramic containers for yogurt. Why throw those away?
Yeah.
At least, those could probably be recycled and they would probably go to the right place. But yeah, I can use that for a candle, or that little mason jar over there, and then this large one that you were just picking up that has Lewes vibes in it. That was a big box store candle before it was labeled with Enlightened Coast logo. So,
or if you're at an antique shop and you see a really cool container, glass container of that might be really cool, something to use. Or I know our family, we had a close family member who passed, and we got from the organization that kind of runs the disease foundation, they sent us this candle. And obviously it's never been burned because it has sentimental value to it. But how cool is it if you could actually use it? Yeah. And then refill it and then use it again and continue to use it. And I think the fear is that when you get a gift, whether it's for a sentimental from maybe a sad moment or even a happy moment, you get a special gift from a loved one that maybe is no longer with you, and you got it for your wedding, and you're like, I don't want to burn it because then it's over. Well, burn it. Yeah. And then have it refilled. That's cool. That's absolutely. Really, really neat. It's I don't, as we talk, my if you haven't figured out, my wheels are constantly spinning. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do it for this, and I can do it for this, and I can go to and I think that it's really it allows you to enjoy the gifts that you get from people, which is cool. And or make something that's super unique that your friends would be like, where did you get that? And they're like, I found this really cool jar over at the antique shop, and I dropped it off, and they set me up, and and fill it up with a different flavor or scent next time and whatever. So I think it's really cool, and I think that the bigger thing is that they're not the typical big box big box scents. They're specific to here, which I think is even more so. And you're obviously at trade shows around the area all the time. If people want to come and actually smell the scents, firsthand. Obviously, you've got a website here that people can go visit, and the website is enlightenedcoastcandles.com. On there is your full, selections, that they have. But on top of that, do you have somewhere that they're able to go see where, shows that you're going to be at, so they can?
So currently, I advertise that on my Facebook group. So I always try and advertise
on your group
within my group.
Yeah.
So if you're a member of the group, you'll see this is where I'm going to be in the coming week or two. I currently have a lot of shows planned for this spring, which I advertise. One thing that I'm actually doing, which I definitely want to mention, is I'm doing a candle workshop, and this is something that I will be
That's
doing.
Super cool.
That I will be doing. Hopefully on a regular basis. So my first soy candle making workshop is actually April 8th. So it's a week from this Monday at the Lewes Library. And so we're going to kick this off. So I've got a full group, full class. And in that class, we're going to talk a little bit about, some of what you and I have just chatted about and some of the advantages and hopefully educate some folks. And then everybody gets to pick out whatever scent they'd like. I'm going to be bringing probably several dozens of different scents for everyone to choose from. They'll have color if they want to.
Is that like a pay, like you buy tickets to get into it?
So
cool.
There were tickets that we sold through both the group as well as on Eventbrite. So I advertised that, and I used Nextdoor to advertise some of that. And it was
awesome.
It was on Facebook as well. So we kicked that off to try and get some interest to see what it was like. It was pretty overwhelming, which was great. Sold out in, I think, 5 days.
Wow.
Which was very good. And so, the hope is we kind of show everybody how to do some of this. They get to pick out what they like. They get to have some fun. This is obviously at the library, so there's not going to be any drinking alcoholic beverages involved, which, I know a lot of classes like this, are usually done at places where you can enjoy some adult beverages.
Sure.
But I'm likely going to be partnering with another small business owner and doing another one in Georgetown at the Revelation Brewery in Georgetown, probably in like another month and a half. So that keep an eye out for that. But that's going to be something where we just kind of show everybody, people who are interested in making these, hey, it's not that hard to do. It's time consuming. It's
you need the tools and everything. Yep. It's not like, hey, I'm going to go out there and become a candle maker. Also, it's probably not something.
You definitely need. It's an investment for sure, right?
Yeah.
There's a space investment, there's a time investment, and there's a cost. And so this will give people an opportunity to make something they can call their own. I will have the ability then to put labels or photos on the class members as well. So if they want something, to your point, that's personalized, that has a photo of their pet, their spouse, their children, whatever, a friend, I will do that there live on the spot in the classroom in the workshop. So again, there's opportunity there to try and personalize, and that's really one of the big things that I've been trying to push is the customization, personalization aspect of the business, which is fun.
That's awesome. Well, I think that this is, your Facebook page is obviously, or Facebook group, I should say, is something, people should check that out. Join the group. There's lots of great info on there. You're constantly adding stuff. And if you join the group, you'll get called out as a new member that has joined the group.
We do that all the time.
There is no cost to join the group, just for those that are not fully aware.
That's right.
But join the group, kind of get involved and understanding, because again, I'm like, my mind's spinning right now. And again, I'm going to clean house when I get home, because it's just one of those things I just think you just never think about. People have been burning candles for centuries. So like what, but we never think about what were they burning compared to what we're burning. So there's, and what was the purpose of why they burned it versus, we're now scented and that, that flame is a vehicle to carry things to our nose, and we would prefer to be healthy rather than, hurtful.
When you mentioned smoking earlier, right? Not to compare these two things, but people have been smoking cigars and cigarettes and tobacco for a very, very long time, right? And that was commonplace for everyone.
Sure.
And I think over time, obviously, the risk of doing certain things is exposed, and people talk about it, and you still have a choice. You don't. It's not illegal. Just like paraffin candles will not be illegal
Sure.
to burn and smell. But I think as time passes, people they learn more. We discover more about what's in everything, and hopefully, people take notice.
Become educated, make life changes, keep your household air cleaner. And that's one thing that we talk about with a lot of the kind of the newer builders and kind of air quality and, MERV 13 filters that are, filtering out much more of the particles that we're breathing in. And that's important things. And, we can continue to improve our indoor air quality by burning something that makes more sense. But I really appreciate you coming on. I would love to have you on again in the future, see how things are kind of moving along, and as new techniques and products come out, I'd love to have you on so that way we can continue, moving forward with stuff. So
that would be awesome.
Awesome.
We'd love it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Cory.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Who's in the House. If you still have questions, feel free to email us at info@who'sinthehouse, DE as in Delaware.com. You can also call or text any questions to 302-466-5511. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button, that notification bell. And in the meantime, keep an eye out for our next episodes. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great day.